Right. The ODI series ends 2-1 in England's favour, but the final ODI, which was played today at the University Oval in Dunedin, ended in New Zealand's favour with a 7-wicket win thanks to an excellent run chase by the hosts. Here we are on the outside view. I have with me Ananya Upendran. Of course, your first thoughts on this run chase, Ananya? It was a classical one, wasn't it?
It was a classical run chase. I think at the start when New Zealand were chasing 220, I wasn't very sure whether they'd get there because I mean you knew that either Sophie Devine or Amy Satterthwaite would have to go big, and it was great to see one Amy Satterthwaite kind of turn back the clock and find that old flow that we know her for. She's known as the engine room of that New Zealand batting lineup, so it was great to see her get 100 and finally to see New Zealand break that losing streak and for Sophie Devine to get a win under her belt. It was very good to watch.
Yeah, of course, it was Sophie Devine's first ODI win as a captain. But let's talk about Amy Satterthwaite's knock, 119 of 128 balls. At the start, it seemed as if she was stuck nowhere to go, etc. But it was just afterwards that you realize that she took her time to get the pace of the wicket, get her eyes in, and then explode. So it was a good, well paced innings, wasn't it?
It was a very well paced innings. I mean, I think the start, the first 20, 25 balls looked a lot like the previous two ODIs where she struggled to hit the ball off the square. She was getting beaten out on the outside edge. She wasn't able to guide the ball through point. We saw a bit of iffy running at the start of her innings. She really was desperate to get off strike. So it looked like she was very nervous and it seemed very unsaturated like. But I think, like you said, she took her time, and once she hit one cover drive, it looked like she had settled down. She finally got that trademark shot out of the way. She found her timing, and I think what stood out for me today was the way she played the spinners. I think that's what made the big difference. From this game to the previous games, when you look at the way New Zealand have handled the spinners, I think the way Amy Satterthwaite nullified Sophie Ecclestone and Sarah Glenn was exceptional. She used her feet, kind of took a leaf out of Brooke Halliday's book by coming down the wicket and then hanging back, hitting them through mid wicket. So it was great to watch. It was a perfectly paced innings, and it was great to see her kind of knock off a couple of milestones and get 100 and notch up another win along the way.
Yeah, 4,000 ODI runs for her, the third New Zealander to do so. And you mentioned Halliday somewhere because in the after the second ODI, we reviewed it on the Clean Bold podcast where we kind of were wondering if it's the Halliday season. And here she is, not batting, but of course standing like an example to the Satterthwaite knock. But there was Amy Satterthwaite on one end. At the other, there was the young Emilia Kerr who's batting at number 5 in all the three matches. Didn't really look her part in the first two games. Today she was there, didn't actually start fluently, but then as she spent time at the wicket, she kind of seemed to tell everybody that she belongs.
Yeah, I mean, I was really happy that New Zealand stuck with her at number 5. I think she's the perfect number 5 for them. She's someone who can both play a little like Satterthwaite and anchor the innings. She takes a bit of time before she unveils her repertoire of strokes, and she has a large repertoire of strokes like we saw today. But I was really happy to see her kind of turn her form around. She's been struggling for a very long time to notch up scores of any substance, but I think what really helped her today was the fact that she had Amy Satterthwaite to kind of rely upon, someone to talk her through her innings at the start. And, that was what was very heartening to see, the fact that Satterthwaite kept talking her through her innings when she was finding it hard to start, when she wasn't really finding her timing. I think, she allowed her to play the spinners. She got her off strike when the Pacers were there. So for me, watching that partnership, it was a lot like watching, a transition of guard somewhat, because I think Amelia Kerr is someone who could potentially play the role of Amy Satterthwaite in the future. So it was a great transition that way, and it was a brilliant partnership.
Yeah, 172 run stand between the duo and Unbroken won that. But the start of the New Zealand batting had a familiar look to it. Three down very early, 51 for three. The openers yet again not giving them a start. Did you think it is again going back to the first two ODIs, the New Zealand batting?
It did feel like that. I mean, it felt like at the start, the innings was going nowhere. Both Natalie Dodd and Hailey Jensen, while they took their time, they kind of didn't really find any ways to score. They allowed both Freya Davies and Natalie Sever to kind of bowl the same ball over 3 or 4 overs, and they didn't try anything different to score runs. And I think that pressure just mounted on them, and that's what led to them, playing unnecessary shots that probably weren't on at the time. So it did feel like New Zealand were falling into that same hole again, with Sophie Devine kind of getting herself in, playing a couple of shots, and then getting out to an innocuous delivery, and it's become a pattern with her through this series. So it did feel like that, but it was again nice to see Satterthwaite and Kerr kind of break that flow and turn the tables on England.
From 51 for 3, that was the last wicket that they lost. But before going to England's batting, I think we have to talk about the Hailey Jensen dismissal by Natalie Sever. It kind of was very similar to Amelia Kerr's dismissal the previous ODI, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I think actually both dismissals for me just underline the versatility and intelligence of Natalie Sever. I think the first dismissal of Amelia Kerr was, of course, an in-swinger across seam, a wobble seam delivery that kind of swung in through the gate. But today with Jensen, she bowled a wonderful off-cutter that kind of dipped on her and turned square. I think it was a dream off-spinner's delivery. And and actually after that, what surprised me was that the likes of Eccleston and Glenn weren't able to get any turn off the surface. So I think Sever bowled exceptionally well, and she's kind of proven to England that if Brunt and Shrubsole are unavailable, they have a third choice new ball bowler who is probably just as good as them or just as effective as them.
The problem for plenty for England, and they'll not complain. But talking about dream of spinner's ball, Frances Moquet started with one. Remember, of course, she came into the side for the final ODI. Started the very second ball that she bowled kind of went through Daniel Wyatt's gate. Even the keeper missed it. Those were perhaps the sign of things to come.
Yeah, it did seem like that. I think Frankie McKay would have been licking her lips when she saw that delivery turn as much. It was, of course, the third game that was being played on the same strip. So it was definitely slow and a little too paced. We saw that the batters found it hard to start as well. So, it was great to see Frankie McKay come back. And she is someone who gets a lot of revs on the ball. So I'm not surprised that she was able to generate turn. And, I think that was a sign, like you said, of things to come, because it was the spinners who did set the tone for New Zealand. They set up the game for New Zealand, both Frankie McKay and Kerr. And even though McKay didn't get a wicket, which I was very, very upset with, I think she bowled very well. She bowled a lot better than her figures suggest.
Yeah, 9 overs for 52 is not really how she bowled. But there was one batter who was standing like a rock, like a wall, like give whatever similarities you want. Tammy Beaumont, 3 matches. New Zealand haven't been able to dismiss her. That is something, isn't it?
Well, she was dismissed once, but I think she's had a brilliant series, and I think after not enjoying the T20 format as much as she has, as much as she would have wanted over the last couple of years, I think she's come back into her own in ODI cricket. She loves ODI cricket. She feels at home there, and I think she's found a role that really suits her in this England lineup, with the likes of Danny Wyatt being pushed up the order, and then you have Natalie Sever, Amy Jones, and Heather Knight, of course, who's really upped her strike rate. I think someone like Beaumont is just allowed to kind of play that Satterthwaite type role, where she kind of allows the other batters to play around her, just rotates the strike and allows them, gives them or lays a foundation for England to really blast from. So she's in excellent form. And I think the other thing is that for me, what really stood out is the way she handled swing. I think that was an area that was slightly iffy, because she does play across her front pad. She plays around her front pad. She's a little susceptible to in swing, but I thought the way she dealt with Jess Kerr, especially today, coming, taking a really big stride forward or playing her very late was something that was very impressive. And it shows that she's constantly trying to improve. And she is one of the best ODI batters going around. So I'm not really surprised with her success at all.
Yeah, 3 half centuries in this series, 3 missed opportunities, if you may call, to notch up a ton. The first 2 might not be because of the dearth of runs, the short target that they had. But today was a good opportunity. She, remember, finished 88 not out of 113 balls. She was left stranded because of lack of partners. Do you think that she kind of didn't rotate the strike better as the innings progressed or towards the close, especially letting the lower order batters take more of strike?
Well, I think, if you remember that innings, she kind of lost some momentum in the middle. She seemed to lose her timing, I suppose, with not being on strike as much as she would have wanted through the middle overs. I think she kind of lost a little momentum, therefore she lost her timing and wasn't able to find the boundary. I remember the commentator saying that she hit a boundary after 20 odd overs in the middle. So she clearly wasn't ever set, or she wasn't ever in, and that's strange to say considering she opened the batting and was there for 48 overs. But I think the thing with England is their batting is so deep. I mean, you look at someone like Sarah Glenn and even Kate Cross for that matter, who batted 3 or 4 for Perth Scorchers. She may not be a batter, but I think she can handle the bat. And all these tail enders are not exactly tail enders. I don't think they're number 11s. They are people who can get 5 to 10 runs. So I think she trusted them to kind of get her back on strike. And, of course, that didn't happen. So you can say that she should have farmed the strike or she should have played a little differently. But I think on that wicket where we saw that it was difficult to kind of gauge the pace of it, I think singles were what she was looking for. And I mean, it may have been a missed opportunity, but I don't think she played it wrong at all.
We discussed a while ago how New Zealand's batting seemed to be an innings of two halves. England's turned out to be the same way. They were on a different plane. They were looking at a different score when Beaumont and Heather Knight were in the middle. And then what eventually turned out was something absolutely different. So I know the lower order, the middle order batters haven't had much game time, but I think it was also down to New Zealand's good bowling, wasn't it? Their seamers, even in the middle overs, Jess they lost Hannah Rowd to a quad injury, but there was Divine who stepped up today. All that factors helped New Zealand in pulling back the innings, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think New Zealand seamers actually bowled very, very well today. They were generating movement through the innings. Even someone like Jess Kerr, who swings the new ball prodigiously, came in the middle overs and was still able to find some swing with that semi-new ball. So, and even Sophie Devine, I think she was back to her best. She bowled not very well in the second ODI, and for her to come in and bowl as well as she did today, I thought was great leadership, and it took a lot of courage for her to come in. There was consistency in that bowling attack, and that's what I think really helped New Zealand. They had very, very clear plans of what they wanted to do, and the difference today was that they executed those plans, and that definitely helped them.
Yeah, this was, of course, like it was a game of crests and troughs because England seemed at top, then went down, then they came up with those early scares before New Zealand took it away. But before ending this chat, we have to visit our yay or nay segment. Lots of things to choose from. What are your picks for this final ODI?
Well, I'm going to be slightly sentimental and sappy today. So I'm going to say Amy Satterthwaite's 100 was my yay moment. It was great to see her come back and play the way she did. And of course, the circumstances and coming back after giving birth and all that stuff. So very, very sappy reason. But it was great to see her come in and really turn it around for New Zealand. So my name moment for me would actually be, I think, the New Zealand openers. I was kind of disappointed with their approach, the way they came in and kind of followed the same template that didn't work for them in the previous 2 games. So to see both Dodd and Jensen kind of succumb to that pressure, that's my name moment today. Yours, what is your yay and nay moment? Because you can't choose Brooke Halliday today, so please let us know what it is.
Technically, I can because she was the partnership breaker. She, in fact, dismissed Natalie Siver. But my yay moment is Frances McKay's bowling, and a bigger chunk of that yay segment is that second ball of the match, the perfect off spinner's delivery. So she's my yay moment. My nay would be England's fielding because this was one game where they were kind of they were tested deeply. Their batting order was tested. The fielding was tested because New Zealand were in the chase. They were acing the chase, and that's where towards the death they let their fielding go awry, and that the result was for everyone to see. So we conclude this session of the Outside View. Hopefully you enjoyed the review of the 3 ODIs. We'll be back with the Outside View for the T20s as well. See you then.